Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you a tournament that I recently played. It took place on November 20th. It was at the Grand Creek Nature Preserve in Foley, Alabama. It was a 2-round tournament in one day called the 9th Annual Shootout at the Creek. And so I played 1 round at the Prairie course and 1 round at the Preserve course. And if you are tuned into any of my social media already, then you probably already know what this video is going to be about. But for those of you who haven't, I won't spoil it for you. But I had already put out some content that you might have seen already about this event. Anyway, one of my goals this year has been to win a tournament. And I've come close several times. I actually had 3 second-place finishes in a row, kind of in the middle of the year. I had a 4th place finish here recently at the Halloween Growler, which I didn't do a video for that because the weather was terrible, and so filming wasn't really easy to do, so we kind of just scrapped it. But I came 4th at that, and then I've had a couple of mishaps where one event I got sick and didn't play well, and so on and so forth. And so I really only had this tournament and maybe 1 or 2 more tournaments before the year is done. And, you know, this is my 3rd year playing disc golf and really my 1st year competing in tournaments. And yeah, so this was definitely one I was really trying to get. There was 20 players in my division. And yeah, here we go. Let's kick things off without any further delay. This is the first hole I played in the event. This is hole 11 at the Prairie. I only had a 3-person card for this first round. And so here we go. First drive wasn't exactly what I wanted. I was trying to play up this left lane, but got caught up. And so that means I have a really long putt here. Mostly looking to give it a soft bid, but making sure I get in position to tap in the par. Putting is definitely one of the things I worked on a lot over these last few weeks. Kind of just getting a set pre-putt routine that I could just always follow. That way I felt comfortable no matter what situation I was in. And so building that routine, that habit was big. And
Right to left.
also working my mental game was a big thing I worked on a lot, and we'll talk more about that later. But here's the very next hole. As you can see, it is pretty cold out. That's why I'm wearing a hoodie. It's also quite windy. I've tried to turn the volume down a good bit on the footage to avoid you having to hear all that, but definitely a very windy day. I think it was like 45 degrees when we played this first round, Fahrenheit, and pretty consistent wind. This one nearly did what I wanted. I didn't swing it out wide enough, and so I left myself a pretty lengthy putt. Had a bit of a headwind on this putt, and as you can see, my disc got lifted up by it, and so I was center, but just a little high. But as you might have heard there, I kind of just said, it's all right. And that was the big thing I was focused on, was just letting shots go and focusing up on the next one ahead. And so I thought I threw a really good shot here, but it wound up being that I actually went pretty deep of the pin. And so I had a very obstructed putt here. I had like a little small window I could putt through on the back side of this tree. So I was trying to look to give it at least somewhat of a chance, but I was going to have to kind of come in on an angle to get through the tree. So I didn't expect to make it, but I was trying to give it my best shot. And why not be able to do it? So that's just another par. On to the next one. Main goal here is to try to hit this gap and give myself a chance. Wound up catching the corner a little bit there, so I didn't get all the way through the gap. Had a little bit of awkward footing. I'm actually just outside circle 1, so this is probably 38 feet, something like that. And just didn't put enough power on it. Coming up here to very next shot. We're in hole 15. Definitely let go of this one early. And I knew it right away. And that's one of the things I really tried to focus on as well. It's something I picked up from a book that I was reading before this event. It's called Zen Golf, and it was talking about being objective in how you judge your shots. So instead of saying the shot was bad, I was just trying to say to myself, hey, I let that one go early. And so it gave me something I could actually fix, something that was tangible rather than just writing it off as being bad. As I was still able to get the par on that one. And so now we're on to 16. So far, you know, I've been playing par golf, so not making any huge blunders, but not really scoring just yet. And that disc wound up just fading more left than I expected it to a tailwind. As you can see here, I am right on the edge of the circle. So this is probably, you know, right at that 32 feet. And got a really good putt there. That was huge for me to get a nice solid putt in pretty early in the round. So now I'm at 1 under par at this point. This is a new hole. I hadn't played it yet. I was just trying to play it really safe, make sure I stay in the fairway, and really just play this thing for par. And so in that regard, so far, I'm executing that game plan to perfection. Definitely was trying to get a little bit closer to the basket on this approach shot. But in the end, it still was only probably about a 15 to 20-foot putt, somewhere in that range. But again, every putt kind of felt scary due to the wind. As you can see, the branches blowing around. Nothing felt like a gimme. But I was able to get the par there. And so now we're on hole 18. It's actually played as an island, so I have to get past those little logs there, kind of in the center of the screen. But there was a painted OB line kind of all around the basket, and some of it even cut into what would be considered circle 1. So it was a pretty tight landing zone. And I was super happy about that because this is actually the first time I've made the island in tournament play. I've had to play from the drop zone, I think, the 3 or 4 other times I've played this hole in a tournament. So to get a birdie this time around felt really good. Now I'm at 2 under par, avoiding any real big mistakes. Now we're on hole 1. A little bit headwindy, so I was very timid on throwing a forehand, but it was my best shot. And I was able to make it work. And so once again, I'm probably near the circle's edge. This is probably somewhere between 25 and 30 feet. A chance at a birdie. And you can hear me there saying, you got to commit. You got to give it a chance. And again, I was trying to be objective, not saying that was a terrible putt or, you know, something that's degrading, but something that I could, you know, think about. Okay, I didn't commit. Next time I will. You know, trying to be objective. Again, the mental game was something I really worked on a lot these last few weeks, along with putting. And let that one go a little bit early as well, and it was kind of low out the hand, so had a tough one here, but I'm just outside the circle, so this is probably right at 33, 34 feet. A little bit of a low ceiling ahead of me, but I definitely still have a very clear look at the basket, so still looking to try to put a score here. And I was able to catch the left side and fall in, so that puts me at 3 under par, I think, at this point in the round. Straddle putting was also something I practiced a lot coming into this event. Straddle putting used to be something I was very uncomfortable with, as you've probably heard in some of my videos in the past, but I think I practiced straddle putts just as much as normal stance putts before this tournament, like the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to it. So trying to make a weakness a strength, so to speak. That was just a layup. I threw a tee shot that didn't really give me a chance to have a safe birdie putt, so just kind of took my medicine. Still sitting at 3 under par as we come into hole 4 here at the Prairie. This is our first really wide open hole. This is where you could really feel the wind. I tried to throw something pretty overstable to fight it, but I wound up throwing it a little bit nose up, a little high, so it stalls out, leaving me well short of the green. I didn't anticipate I would get close for a birdie put on this hole anyway. It's a little bit out of my distance range. It's probably like around 360, 370. And with the headwind, wasn't expecting to get close, but I was hoping to get closer than this. And then I kind of rolled my wrist on that upshot, plus the headwind, so that just turned over a good bit. But still have a chance to get par here. I'm probably about 25 feet away from the pin. But I had a ripping tailwind at this point. And I just putted nose down and just a little bit of a mishap on the putting green there. I got a little too timid with the tailwind and was too scared of really messing up and wound up doing just that. Decided to just ride the headwind on this drive. It was a par 4, so I knew I had some breathing room on either side of the fairway. Made sure I covered some good distance and put myself in a pretty prime spot to approach for birdie. And pretty much parked it, so keeping myself at 3 under par. Or actually now 2 under par because I bogeyed hole 4, so I'm back to 2 under. This is the very next hole, hole 6. Pretty straight shot, about 270, 280-ish. And I threw this one pretty much perfectly. This is probably one of my best shots of the tournament. And just a drop-in birdie to get me back to 3 under par. Yeah, not putting is fun. Makes life a lot easier. This hole is probably about 300, maybe just under 300. Bass is kind of dead center of the screen behind that tree cluster. Just playing the wide forehand and hit it perfect. Even got a really favorable roll here, as you can see. Brought me even closer to the pin. I'm basically parked at this point. I mean, it's like, this is probably a 15-footer. So pretty much right outside the bullseye. Yep, that did happen. And I'm going to pause it right here because, again, one of the things I really worked on before this tournament was the mental game. That was one of the biggest things I would struggle with in the past. You know, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, but I was kind of one of those guys on the course that could, you know, get frustrated, start, you know, kind of yelling a little bit. Not at anyone. I would always be nice to my card mates. I'd always congratulate them on their good shots and, you know, try to be upbeat for my card mates and be supportive of them. But I would get really down on myself and kind of start just saying, wow, you're bad, or wow, that was a terrible putt, or what are you doing? You're garbage. Like, I was very self-deprecating, and you know, my self-esteem could crack pretty easily on the course. So one of the things I really worked on is, you know, Brian Earhart put out this video on the Discgraph YouTube channel about mental game, and as I was listening to it, he made some references to some different books. One was called Zen Golf, and then one was called Golf is Not a Perfect Game by like Dr. Bob Rotella, I think his name is, or might be mispronouncing that, but they're kind of like sports psychologists, you know, have PhDs in psychology, have worked with professional athletes in a variety of disciplines, and those books really did help. I mean, a lot of it was kind of stuff you might consider common sense, like, you know, being objective, not being subjective on how you judge your shots, letting the shot go, you know, focusing on the shot ahead, staying in the present, you know, all kinds of different things that, again, most people would know that's what you're supposed to do. But I think something about getting it drilled into my head over and over again throughout the course of a book written by a sports psychologist just kind of made it hit a bit different, so to speak. And so, again, coming up to this tournament, I really was trying to focus on keeping a positive attitude, saying that's okay, you know, I still got plenty of holes to play, just trying to keep being in the present, keep thinking forward. You know, part of that was developing like a consistent pre-shot routine to kind of calm myself and just kind of, you know, visualize the shot that I wanted and go out there and execute it. And just, you know, if something did go bad, try to just to let it go. Again, try to be objective instead of saying that's bad. Think about, you know, an objective way to frame it, like, you know, not committing or letting go early, or, you know, not being focused, or, you know, putting the wrong angle on the disc, or not reading the wind correctly. You know, just trying to think of things that were an objective way to frame it rather than just writing it off as being bad and getting down on myself about it. And so far this round, you know, I've had a couple situations come up that were kind of rough, you know, either a shot that did not go the way I wanted to at all, or a putt that I missed that I really felt like I should get. And up until this point, I've been doing really good about keeping calm, and I'm pretty proud about this moment because a spit out like that in the past would be something I would be, I don't know how to put it, I would just be, I think, harped on it for a long time. And in this situation, I was pretty proud that I can just stand here calmly.
Oh my God.
We'll look at it again here in slow motion here in a second. Definitely a little bit left to center, but just barely, and really unfortunate. So nearly got my birdie there to put me back at 4 under par. And here you can see me just rocking my head back and forth, just letting that one go. I was almost mentally shaking off the hole as I was physically shaking my head. You know, kind of tying those two things together like a little mental trick, I guess you could say. Just focusing up on the next hole. I even said it. Everybody else is saying, oh, you got robbed. And I was saying, nah, I put a little left. You know, just trying to get my head off of it and be objective. This hole, I was mostly just trying to make sure I stayed in bounds because that road on the left was OB. And so I cut in a little bit early, leaving myself a lengthy putt, but I was fine with par if that would be the way it goes. And just a little low, a little higher that might have had a chance to go in. And at this point, we got 2 holes left to play, and I'm sitting, I think, now at 4 under par. And this looked like a great shot, and that was a putter, so I didn't think it'd get much ground action, but it definitely did. You can see here I wound up in this rough. Definitely giving myself a much tougher putt. I've had a couple of putts like this round where I was just kind of in some bushes or something, and so I had an obstructed putt. I had to kind of really work hard to give myself even a look at the basket. Yeah, it's probably my 3rd time throughout the round I was kind of stuck in a sticky situation on the putting green, but got my par. Still sitting at 4 under at this point. We're on the very next hole. This is actually the final hole of the round. And this one I just did not put outside enough at all, and then hit that tree. And it probably was, because if I wouldn't have hit that, I could have carried even further left and wouldn't even had a way to pitch up for the par. So I just asked, like, is it just behind the tree? They said, yeah, it's about 10 feet behind the tree, you know, dead center with it. So I kind of had an aiming point because they told me that. So I figured I would just kind of give it a slight chance, but make sure I get up there for my par.
What? Yeah. Holy shit, bro.
Not one to really use a lot of profanity, but I just hit a blind 90-footer for birdie. And that was almost just kind of some nice positive karma after having that putt fall out on me a couple of holes ago.
Dang it, I couldn't even see it.
And my fiance just being an absolute champion on the camera the whole tournament, by the way. And yeah, that was just a big way to end the round. 95-foot putt. Had to get the basket some love on that one. Oh, man. All right, so let's review my first round here really quick. I wound up shooting 5 under par. We started on hole 11. And, you know, had a couple of birdie putts I missed kind of in this stretch between 12 and 15. But wound up getting the birdie on 16, then got the birdie on 18. Then I got it on 2 to kind of put me at 3 under par. Took that bogey on hole 4, that hole out in the open, but then I got back-to-back birdies. It's a pretty nice recovery to kind of get me back to 4 under par. And then I wound up birdieing the very last hole on what was kind of a lucky shot. I mean, I definitely aimed it correctly and gave it a chance, but it was definitely not one you could really expect to fall in. But it did, and so I was really happy with that. Again, that kind of that last birdie kind of made up for that whole situation on hole 7, where I could have had my turkey, but the putt fell out. So shooting 5 under, I was pretty happy with that. I was kind of aiming for 8 under par as a goal, because that's something I haven't been able to shoot in the past in practice, and so that was something I was trying to do again. But honestly, though, the more that I look at it, the only holes I feel like I really left on the table was hole 1. I definitely missed a birdie putt. I probably could have gotten, hole 3. I messed up the tee shot, but that's usually a hole that you can birdie. But, I got 5 and 6, which is pretty big. 7, I had just an unfortunate putt roll out, so I felt like I did everything I was supposed to on that hole. My putt was a little left, but I felt like I could be happy with how I played the hole. Hole 8, I just played super safe, and so a par is the result. I was fine with that. Hole 9, I got a little bit unlucky with how much my putter rolled after it fell, and I was stuck in some bushes, so I didn't really have a look. So overall, I was really happy with this round, and I wound up being in a tie for second place. I think it was a 3-way tie for second place at this point, and I was only 1 stroke behind the leader going into the second round as we move on over to the preserve course for round 2. So we started on a hole 10. A little short tunnel shot, but very tight. Just threw a glitch here, a catch disc, actually, that just got released by MVP disc. And, just drifted it to the right-hand side. I knew that if I put that disc on the left-hand side of the fairway, it would slowly drift to the right. And that was kind of what I was banking on. And it gave me a chance for birdie here. And that was a huge way to start the round. A big birdie there. That actually tied me with the leader because he took par on that hole. So now we're all square going into hole 11. Another pretty short shot, but much more open. Through my zone here. And perfect shot, wound up hitting the pole. So just a drop in for birdie. And now I have a 1-stroke lead, as the leader took a par on that hole as well. So I went from being down by 1 to now up by 1. Now we're on hole 12. Throwing my Explorer here. Did not put that out wide enough, and a little nose up. So definitely didn't get close to the pin. But I was still, I think, a foot inside of circle 1. So I had, I guess, a 30-footer here. Elevated basket, kind of windy. My goal here was just to give it a chance, but do so softly. And didn't get it, but was able to drop in the par there, so didn't take any damage. And that was one of those calculated putts of being timid. Sometimes I'm timid and I don't need to be. I need to just putt. But that one, I think it was right to be cautious with the elevated pin and the wind. So this one I also just was a little nose up on, but it was also a headwind, so I didn't get as much distance as I usually can get in circle 1 here. But didn't happen this time. I'm probably about 45 feet away. In this situation, I had a backstop kind of, you can see back there, just all the shrubs and trees behind the pin. So I knew I could give this a chance and it wouldn't be too risky. This wound up swinging it out a little too wide, but still, you know, very routine par putt here for me. So now we are on a par 4 here. This is hole 14, I believe. I thought I had a tailwind here, so I pulled out my Thrasher, which is an understable distance driver, but it's kind of my max distance disc. And I figured with the tailwind, you know, it would be able to get that turn, but then eventually stable out. And either the wind shifted or I had a bad read, but that thing turned and burned. But I just shrugged that off. I didn't even say anything. I was just like, eh. Again, just trying to stay focused, keep that mental game positive. Had a pretty long approach here. I think this is right at 260 to the pin. Throw my Iron Samurai 4, kind of an overstable mid, trying to fight a wind. But I just stalled it out too much. And as you can see, I'm just outside circle 1. That white painted line is the circle 1 line. I was able to put it in for a birdie because that was a par 4. So didn't have the best tee shot or approach shot, but made it work on the putting green. Now we're on hole 15, which is kind of a bonus birdie. It's just outside of my distance range, but it is, you know, possible. And I mean, I threw my shot in a really good place. Wide open approach to the pin to grab my par. So, you know, played this hole pretty much the way I wanted to. Birdie wasn't really in the equation for me on this hole. I don't quite have the distance to get there. And so I executed it exactly as I planned. Now we're on hole 16. This is about 350, I think. 340, 350 to the pin. So kind of my max distance range, basically. I need to go perfect to give myself a chance. And yeah, this is probably another one of my best shots of the tournament. Alongside that one throw I did on hole 6 at Prairie. And so I'm actually only about 15 or 20 feet from the pin. This is the closest I've ever been to this basket for a birdie putt. And again, that's something that happened to me a couple of times this round where I just didn't commit to the putt fully, and so I wound up leaving it a bit short. I will say the other thing that kind of got me on this was this basket sits lower than any other basket on the course. So I was scared of actually throwing a little too high and kind of hitting this like metal assembly before the chain start, just below the number plate. That's kind of my aiming point on a normal height basket. And so I just wound up thinking I don't have to put it as hard because it's a lower basket, you know, and I was wrong. You know, I wound up leaving it short still. So that was definitely an opportunity I kind of let go by, but it is what it is. I was able to shake it off and move on to the next hole here. We're at hole 17, a par 4. Threw a pretty good shot here. You don't need too much distance off the tee on this hole since it's a par 4 to get your birdie. Had pretty much a straight shot here. I think this is right around 180 to the pin from where I was. And just put that one nose up and high. Needed to go more straight at it. And so now I'm all of a sudden, once again, hello darkness, my old friend. This happened to me probably 3 or 4 times in the first round where I just kind of got stuck in some rough. Not really having a clean look at the basket. Tried to give it a slight chance. That was the best I could really do from where I was. Just put it on an extreme hyzer angle and just try to wrap it in, but didn't quite work, so took a par there. I think at this point in the tournament, I still only had 1 bogey, and I played a lot of holes, so I'm playing pretty solid. Hole 18 here. There is some OB on that left-hand side, but I was able to have my disc fight out. That was a Halo Emperor, so pretty overstable disc for me. Now I'm trying to just approach up there, get my par. And that was the first time I really used self-deprecating language. I called myself a dummy, but I kind of did so in jest. I didn't say I was bad or anything. It's kind of a mild diss to myself, I guess, as I'm right here on the edge of the circle. And luckily my putting got me out of that situation, so I don't get in the par anyway. Worth noting at this point, we now have probably 7 holes left to play, 6 or 7 holes left to play. And I think at this point, I'm 2 or 3 strokes in the lead. And so at this point, I'm kind of just playing conservative. You know, get the birdies where I can, but, just try to play smart golf. And so this hole, I'm disking down, playing something very overstable, and just making sure I stay in the fairway. And did exactly what I wanted. Put myself in a great position to just chip up there and grab myself a par. Throw on my Justice here, which is something that can fight headwinds. And just make sure it gets to the right. And I get exactly where I want to be. Give myself a nice little tap in here for par for the most parts. And we're off to hole number 2. And for me personally, this is probably the most nervy tee shot on the course. It's a very long tunnel. And while it is wider than hole 10, because it's longer, if you get caught up early, this thing can spiral into a bogey or double bogey pretty quickly. So my goal here was just stay center fairway. I wound up throwing one of my Envies here. This is a Glow Envy. Pretty straight throwing putter for me. I'm kind of aiming toward the right side of the fairway and letting it just stable out. And pretty much exactly what I want, dead center. And so now I can just kind of chip around the corner, give myself a look at a birdie. Throw on my zone here. Trying to float one in the circle. Do a pretty decent job of it. When I got up here, I actually left myself a lot shorter than I wanted to. This is probably still like a 25 foot putt or so. So I'm making myself have to work a little bit harder for it. Just didn't quite give that approach enough power. But I get the birdie nonetheless, and so I'm keeping myself out in front. Very next hole, not quite a poke and hope hole, but it's definitely kind of tricky. So I just play something pretty smart up the left-hand side. Didn't give it enough juice, so I wind up probably sitting at about 40 feet. But this is one of those holes where I was fine with the par if it came down to it. Just flew it over the top of the basket, but no big deal. Pretty easy tap in par. And so now we only have a couple holes left. The hole before this I don't have, but I bogeyed it. So that was one that I really thought I should birdie, or at least par, and I wound up bogeying it. So that one hurt a little bit, but I was able to shake it off. No big deal. And so this is where I want to stop and talk about something, because my whole goal this event, I mean, obviously winning is kind of a goal, but I was going to let the win come if I played well. It wasn't something that I was really overly stressing about. You know, as long as I played my best and I felt like I did everything I wanted to and, all that jazz, I was going to be happy, no matter what. But one of the big things I wanted to do this event was do the one thing I could guarantee myself. You can't guarantee the win, but what you can guarantee yourself is to get through it, to be mentally tough, keep the composure. And that right there is something I'm incredibly disappointed in. And I left it in because I want to hold myself accountable for it. Some of you are probably thinking that wasn't really a big deal. It is to me, because as I've already talked about in this video, one of my biggest goals was the mental game. I wanted, no matter what, even if I couldn't win the tournament, I wanted to win the mental battle because I could guarantee myself that. And I'm sad to say that I got through, 32 holes out of 36, doing really well, letting any bad break or bad shot just roll off me, and just move on and stay positive, stay upbeat. And this is one of those moments where there was only about 3 or 4 holes left to play. And because I bogeyed the previous hole, I think my 3-stroke lead was now just maybe a 1-stroke lead. And so I knew that making a mishap like that off the tee opened up the door for the leader to tie things back up with only a few holes left to play. And so I got mad. I got mad at myself for, not committing to the throw, getting too timid and letting go early and catching an early tree and, punching my hand, which that's very disappointing. I'm very disappointed in that. The fact that I slipped right there one time is something I'm going to hope that I can patch up going forward. And so, yeah, I'm in a lot of trouble here. In a lot of trouble. trying to still see if I can salvage par, but I have a very tricky angle here. I just didn't put enough anhyzer on that. That was a Lucidex Felon. I probably should have either thrown a less overstable disc or I needed to put a lot more angle on it to try to get myself in the circle to save par. So I wound up leaving myself really deep. And I kind of understood that that was, I was a low percentage putt. And so I wound up taking a bogey on this hole. And I think at this point I am tied with the leader. Or maybe even a stroke behind. I think I'm tied, though. So now here we are, hole 6. About 275, 280. I'm throwing my Explorer again here. Just trying to go wide right, stay away from this tree on the left-hand side of the fairway, and just try to get up to the green, give myself a chance to grab a birdie. Yeah, man. That was my first ever ace, and I do it in a tournament.
I got it.
And so the reason why I don't start celebrating until then was because I didn't know that it was still in the basket, or I didn't know that I had made it. So, we're watching it go in, and you all can see it, and my fiance could see it because she's filming because she zoomed in on the basket. So I heard the chains. I knew it had hit the basket. I didn't know if it stayed in because for me, because of this tree right here, it casts a shadow over the basket. And I don't have the best eyesight anyway. That's why I wear glasses. So I couldn't tell it was still inside of the basket. I thought it had maybe fallen out. Maybe I had just, grazed the basket and then was sitting somewhere in the circle. Still a chance at birdie for sure, but I did not think I aced it. And we'll roll it again because why not? Why not? Can't watch this enough. First ever ace, and I do it in a tournament, and I catch it on video. That is something I'll never forget. Throwing that same Explorer I've been throwing all tournament long. And, man. And so, yeah, when I get up to here, I can finally see that it's still in the basket. And so now I know I had it. And yeah, man, crazy stuff, dude. So that disc has been retired. And that ace took me from being tied for the lead to now 2 strokes ahead of the lead. And so we'll wrap it up there on the tournament. I played 2 or 3 more holes after that, but they wound up being just, they didn't matter really. I'll tell you, the next hole I bogeyed because I lost all focus when I aced, man. I was so shaky and jittery and had that adrenaline rush. And so the very next hole I wound up just completely just doing some dumb stuff and wound up taking a bogey on it. And so there it is. I not only got my first ace, but I also got my first win all in the same event. And I got it on video. Man, I'll remember this for the rest of my life. It's just so surreal. I still can't believe it, honestly. Just incredible stuff. And there's Tim Clausen there who runs things out in Foley. And it was special to win here, too. It's one of my favorite places to play. And so, yeah, it was cool to finally take one down here over at Graham Creek. And to add something a little bit special here at the end, this was a message I sent my friend Matt Givens that morning because we were talking about some traffic on the way because we live out in Mobile. It's about an hour away from Foley. And the tournament started at 9 a.m., so, we had to leave here like around 7:30 to make sure we got there on time. And I sent him this message after we had a talk about traffic. That was what that audio call was. At the end here, I say, if I don't see you before the start, good luck. Let's take a photo at the end together with our trophies. And so I get my trophy, and there he is. Matt Givens wins MPO. He actually won in a playoff. I got to watch the last 4 holes of regulation and the playoff to see him get his win. And so it is kind of wild that, 8 or so hours before this photo was taken and an hour before the tournament started, I basically messaged him, my man Mac here, that let's take a photo with our trophies after. And here we are taking a photo with our trophies after. Man alive, it's kind of a crazy story. Then that's my friend Keith King, who also got himself a W there out in MA2. So, yeah, here in the background, we'll just kind of play some of the best shots I had of the tournament these last few minutes, talk things out. Again, getting my first tournament win right before the end of the year. This is basically the second to last event I was going to play of 2022, and I was able to get the win. at one of my favorite places to play, one of the first places I ever competed at. And I'm happy to say that my putting did do really well this event. There was a couple of short ones that I missed that I probably should have definitely gotten, but I just didn't commit to the putt and wound up shorting them. And then I had one that just spit out that was really unlucky. I felt it was a pretty good putt, all things considered, but just fell out. But it happens. Then I hit like a crazy 95-footer afterwards to make up for it. Also, I made quite a few putts in Circle 2. My Circle 2 percentage was actually pretty darn good this tournament. I also got really comfortable with my straddle putt, and so my putting practice definitely paid off. And I will say my mental game was really good this tournament for the most part. I think I played 33 really good holes when it came to just my headspace. I let things go. I didn't get overly angry or overly happy about anything, aside from the ace, obviously. Tried to just kind of remain stoic and stable. And so mental game overall went pretty well. Putting came through really well. So the practice and the reading I had done and all like the visualization I had done and all that, I mean, I really cashed in on that. And I threw pretty clean all day. I didn't have too many mistakes. I think there was maybe only 4 or 5 holes out of the 36 where I really flubbed a tee shot or an approach shot. But for the most part, I was getting myself in situations where I had chances to score very often. And yeah, man, it's just, again, it's just so surreal that I had everything kind of come together the way that it did to, again, get my first ace, to get my first win, to catch it all on camera, to have that message I sent my friend 8 hours before. I mean, just a really cool experience. And again, I appreciate all of you who have been kind of hanging with me throughout the lifespan of this channel. And, you know, I've seen me play some tournaments in the past where I've gotten really close and I've done some really cool things, but didn't quite, you know, get what I needed to do to get the win. But then this time around, just have everything come together to kind of have all the preparation and practice I've been doing, I guess, really all year long. But I was really hyper-focused for the, 3 to 4 weeks leading up to this tournament after I played the Halloween Growler in October to really just kind of give it my best shot to win before the year would end. You know, make sure that I knew that I had done everything I could to give myself a chance to win. And then it all coming together in the end is definitely pretty incredible stuff. And again, I know some of you have probably already known about this. If you were following me on social media, you've probably already seen the ace clip. It was pretty highly upvoted on the disc golf subreddit. It was all over my Twitter and Instagram, and I'm sure it's been shared around a good bit. Definitely going to be some great memories. And again, I hope that you folks will follow and subscribe to catch more content in the future. You know, I'm now getting very close to 700 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. I'm really hoping to start knocking on the door of 1,000 subscribers. You know, probably not going to happen before the end of the year, but we'll see what happens. And, you know, also looking forward to doing some more commentary next year. Of course, I work with Gatekeeper all season long for MPO Chase Card and Feature Card stuff, hosted a show on DGN, and so really just hoping to expand that side of my life within disc golf, I guess you could say, as well as to play with the commentary and content and all that jazz. And so, with that said, that's going to do it for this video. I'll air the ace one last time, and then I'll be signing off. Catch you folks next time.
I got it. Yes.